Can you hear me? I don't feel like the microphone's on, but it is on. Okay, there we go. So when I run a liquor company, when I got asked to speak at this conference, it was my first time getting approached by anyone at 2.0, and I said, "Well, what's the conference about?" They said, "Well, it's food, it's health." And I said, well, liquor is neither. So I'm not really sure why they asked me to speak, but as I started thinking about it, and they said, you know, they were looking for kind of distinctive presentations regarding marketing-related issues as well. So I said, okay, and I started to put together a presentation about what the agenda says, which is cross-marketing, cross-promotional marketing. Well, as I started to write that topic, I started to morph it into something else, which I thought would be more interesting to the crowd. So there are elements of that cross-promotional marketing, which is written in the agenda, but it led to a different space, which I think is more interesting, about being a small company and a small player competing against multinationals and the behemoths in your industry. And how do you do that successfully to cut through the clutter and grow your business or grow your brands? Just a quick show of hands. I know there aren't that many people in this room, but do any of you have a bit of that entrepreneurial spirit, or are you in something that's more entrepreneurial, maybe smaller by industry size, or you're thinking about maybe getting into that kind of space? Okay, so, oh, wow, it's a pretty good percentage of the crowd. Well, then I think you'll find this hopefully interesting, or at least relevant to what you might be thinking about getting into in the near future. Okay, so how do I advance this? Oh, sorry. So again, I own and run a small liquor company called Conecuh Brands. Conecuh, the name is not that relevant to anyone or consumer-facing, but Conecuh is a region in Alabama one of our brands originated from, so we kind of kept that in the company's name. It's southern Alabama, south of Montgomery. There's an area called the Conecuh Ridge of Alabama, and we adopted that as the company name. So I run this company called Conecuh Brands, and one of our largest brands is that bottle on the far right corner there you see called Clyde Maize, named for a moonshiner from Alabama, and we acquired the trademark and built the brand. Oh, you know it. Okay. Thank you, Jason. And by the way, great timing for presentations. Jason talked about distilling. I'm going to talk more about the marketing of liquor brands. So, and that was purely coincidental. We didn't stage that. So thank you for going before me. So we created this brand around this real life person, Clyde Maize, and in fact, discussed it with his family, and his grandson with the same name actually works for us today. He's our young brand ambassador. But as a startup, and we started this company about 7 years ago, just to give you a sense of who we're competing against in the liquor business. And Jason, who's going to branch out beyond Oregon, is going to find this like a big stick in the eye real soon, I'm sure. So Diageo, the largest liquor company in the world, did last year about $17 billion in sales. They have hundreds of brands. Crown Royal is one of their largest brands. You see that on the slide. Pernod Ricard out of France, almost $12 billion last year in sales. Chivas Regal, you've all heard of that brand, I'm sure, one of their largest brands. Constellation Brands, which is a US-based company, actually out of Rochester, New York, Canandaigua, New York, did about $9 billion. They own the US distribution rights to Corona beer and Modelo, and they own liquor brands called Svedka Vodka, and they own Miami Pinot Noir and wine brands, et cetera. Brown-Forman, another US-based company out of Louisville, Kentucky, over $4 billion. They own the brand Jack Daniels. So this is what I'm up against 6 or 7 years ago when I wanted to start this business. And you can imagine how daunting that is. I said, how the heck am I going to compete against these multinationals that do this kind of business with such established brands and have such recognition among consumers? It's virtually impossible. And by the way, they can outspend you 50 to 1, 100 to 1 with their A&P budgets. But we figured out how to do it. And that's what I'm going to really talk to you about this morning. And we did it, I think, successfully because we've grown this business, our little company called Conecuh Brands, over the last 7 years. We'll do about, I guess, we're not doing billions, we're doing in the millions. We'll do, $16, $18 million this year in revenue. But that's, for a small company from zero in 7 years is a pretty good growth trend. These are our brands for the most part. The Clyde Mays portfolio, it's an American whiskey portfolio. The bottle in the middle, that green label, is an Irish whiskey brand called McConnell's Irish Whiskey. And then to the far right is our tequila brand called Prospero Tequila, 100% agave tequila imported from Mexico, of course. We created these brands, all of these. We didn't acquire them. We acquired the trademark for Clyde Mays, but we created all the others. We created Clyde Mays. We just had a trademark, and we built the brand around it. So from nothing to where we are now, it's been a pretty respectable effort despite the enormous competition. So how do you do this and cut through, and how do you create brands in a very crowded category with tremendous money behind these other competitors? Well, the first thing you do, and I'm going to outline 5 things that I think are important to take note of when you're starting a business or a brand. Number 1, play to your strength. Think about what you're really good at and try to do it to the best of your ability, because that's where your skills and your abilities supposedly are. If that's what you think you do better than others, you have to do it. You have to put all your efforts behind that. One of the things we think we do better than even the big folks is in design, the package design. Some people have accused me of, are you sure you're not in the design business, or are you in the liquor business? But we take our packaging very, very seriously, and everything we create to attract consumer attention is done proprietary in-house. And we've looked at our branding versus these large competitors, and we think we do it as well, if not better than most of them. A lot of big companies don't spend the time and attention on these kind of details when it comes to package design. And if you don't have a huge ad budget, the first experience your consumer is going to have with your brand is how you look and feel. They'll see your product on a shelf or in a back bar, and that's what's going to grab their attention. So if you can't tell your story or grab their attention through your labeling or your package, you've lost the consumer. So again, if you don't have huge budgets, you better be able to tell as much as your brand story on your packaging. We've won numerous awards for our packaging, and I believe more than many of our competitors have, and that's what's helped get us recognized a bit. Our American whiskey portfolio, for example, is very distinctive and unique. We work with materials that no other brands that we've seen out there. For instance, I don't know if you can see that black and gray bottle in the middle. That's actually a metallized label that we figure out a way to heat it up, bend it and affix it to a glass bottle. No one's taken that kind of time and attention. They're expensive to do, but again, it causes you to stand out. That bottle on the far right is our Clyde Mays Cask Strength Kentucky Bourbon, and that label is made out of wood, believe it or not. I haven't seen another label like it in the industry, whether Diageo, Pernod, nobody's doing that. And how we did that was when you go to the printing company, actually, that created this label, it looked like a lumber supply store because there were shards of wood all over the place, shaved down very, very thin, moistened, and then again affixed to the label and imprinted first, then affixed to the label. A distinctive bottle, and all those items have sold out very quickly, and they're not cheap. That's a $200 bottle of bourbon on the far right and a $150 bottle in the middle. We use interesting graphics and colors. The Clyde Mays, the second label from the left, that red label, was in honor of the University of Alabama. That's the same font color as the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Any University of Alabama fans in the room? Usually I get more boos when I say that than yays. I guess people hate a winner all the time. But it's, again, a unique color and graphic on a label. Sorry. So number 2, how do you break through the clutter? Second thing you do is you write a better brand story. We believe, and this is just a paragraph from our website, we believe we have a fascinating story in every bottle. All of our premium spirits in our portfolio have one thing in common. They're built around authentic stories, rich with intrigue, charisma, and layers of unique flavors. So you got to have a powerful brand story. Whatever your business you're in, whatever brand you're creating, if you want to break through the clutter and stand out, you better say something about your brand that is authentic, real, and compelling. And if you do that, consumers will become very attracted to your story, your brand, and lead to sales. And that's how you stand out among these large competitors. And I'm just give you an example of what we've done. I told you that we acquired the trademark to the Clyde Mays brand, which created the brand after acquiring the trademark. Clyde May was a real person. So again, we have an authentic story about a real person who used to moonshine. Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, he went off to World War II. He served in the South Pacific, came back as a decorated war hero, a Purple Heart, Bronze Medal of Valor. So we had all the ingredients for what we thought was a compelling story. And then what did he do? He went, after the war, he moonshined. He had 8 children. He had to support his family. And that was his way of doing it. So you might say, well, what was wrong with that? Well, the government had thought that was a lot wrong with that. You're not paying taxes. You're selling liquor across state lines, which he did. He sold from Alabama to Florida, which is a quote-unquote bootlegging. He probably wasn't reporting his income. There was a lot of things wrong with that. Anyway, the law finally caught up with him in 1970. He got arrested for tax evasion, moonshining, and all the bit. And he went to jail. He actually served 8 months in a federal penitentiary. And when he came out, what did he do? Went right back to moonshining. He passed away in 1990. So when we learned about this story of Clyde, we all said, this should be on a label. This is not make-believe. And I met with their lawyers and his lawyers who defended him in court. I met with his family members, his children. So we created a story from this man's life. And we'll just show you a little, let's see if this comes on.
What's the secret of Clyde Mays whiskey? Maybe it's the high-quality ingredients and notes of dried apple that give it its smooth Alabama-style flavor. Or maybe it's not something, but someone, a family man, who did things the right way, whether he was caring for his kin or crafting his whiskey. So, perhaps the secret in every sip of Clyde Mays whiskey is Clyde May himself.
So that story, which we encapsulate into a 30-second TV spot, because we run it on now as promotion. Every graphic you saw there, his paperwork, you saw his bookkeeping, all his handwriting. We had all these artifacts, and we wanted to let consumers know that we had his recipe. This is a real story, and we put it on the brand, and I think that became very compelling. That brand is now available in the 7 short years we've had it in all 50 states. I'm talking Alaska to Florida, Maine to Hawaii, and now we export it in about a dozen countries. So it's, the story is resonating. I'm sorry, let me go back. Our Irish whiskey, again, we created this brand. It's a bespoke bottle, meaning it's a proprietary mold and a unique glass. There was a basic story here that we uncovered. We didn't create this brand, but we recreated it. What I mean by that is we uncovered a trademark that had been dormant for 90 years in Ireland. We went over there and heard about a production facility and a distillery that had been burnt down and closed. And we explored it further, and we found out that the McConnell's Irish Whiskey trademark was dormant, and we could acquire it. So we did, and we resurrected the story, and we did some research. This is the oldest Irish whiskey brand in Northern Ireland. It was literally started by 2 brothers, John and James McConnell, in 1776. And we found evidence it would have been in the United States as early as 1902. How do we know that? We found a retail ad on the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle newspaper for McConnell's Irish Whiskey, 1 quart bottle, 95 cents. That's before metric sizes were even introduced into America. So we said, gee, there's another great story. This is the oldest Irish whiskey brand, had been basically dormant. What happened was it had continued in business right up through the late 1920s. And what happened in the United States at that time? Prohibition. Prohibition basically stopped short any Irish whiskey productions that were going on in Ireland because the U.S. was the biggest market for Irish whiskey. So dozens, if not hundreds, of distilleries actually started closing down in the 20s and early 30s in Ireland because of U.S. prohibition. So that prohibition saddled with fires at the distillery. McConnell's closed up officially in the early 1950s. So we've resurrected this brand. If you go in on the internet, you could see an old image of the bottle, and we resurrected this bottle to look somewhat like it did back in the 1900s when it was in the United States. That's the brand story. Again, another very authentic, real story, giving the brand credibility and authenticity. And let me show you the story we put together. Again, this you could see. I don't know if anyone or any hockey fans out there, but we run this on the NHL network sometimes. But I'm going to show you the story as narrated by a gentleman by the name of Tim Murphy. That name ring a bell to anyone? Tim Murphy is a character actor from Ireland, most famous for appearing on the TV series Sons of Anarchy. I don't know if any Sons of Anarchy fans out here. He just did a movie actually with Bruce Willis over the summer. I think when you see his face, you'll say, oh, I know that guy, but you didn't know his name. So let me tell you the McConnell story. I'll let Tim Murphy tell you it.
I have a story for you. Not just any story, the best kind of story. A comeback story. There was a time when Irish whiskey was the most popular spirit in the world, and this was one of the oldest and most celebrated of them all, John and James McConnell's. But then disaster struck. It was the largest fire Belfast had ever seen. 500,000 gallons of McConnell's whiskey went up in flames that day. Things were good for a while, until disaster struck again. Prohibition in America wiped out 90% of all Irish whiskies, McConnell's among them, until now. Presenting the newest name in Irish whiskey, a legend reborn after 90 long years. Quite possibly the greatest comeback in the history of whiskey. Some things are worth waiting for.
So I don't know about you all, but I would buy anything he's selling. I love the accent. He's just he's a sweetheart of a man, I tell you. He's acting as our U.S. brand ambassador now. And the brand's doing very well. It's the 18th largest selling Irish whiskey in America today after only its second year in the United States. So there are thousands or hundreds or maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people in the United States with the last name McConnell's. So we did a direct mail piece. We mailed out to everyone. If you can buy these lists of everyone in America named McConnell's, and we sent a direct mail piece talking about their namesake now on a bottle of Irish whiskey, and our business has been going through the roof. It's been really kind of exciting to see. So our tequila, also another great brand story, but I'm bringing this up now for a bit of a different reason why and how you can cut through the clutter. We talked about the first two, do what you do right, do what you do good, and for us it's package design. Secondly, build a great story. Thirdly, establish a real point of difference. Do something that's a little bit more distinctive than others. Be distinctive. So we have created a very unique positioning for our tequila, which no other tequila brand in America or anywhere in the world, frankly, has done. What did we do differently to be distinctive? We market this brand to women, almost exclusively. Our tagline is tequila that embodies the power of the female spirit. A little play on words there, and I'll explain that in a second why we did that. Anyone recognize, I'm sure you're not going to recognize the woman on the left, but that is a woman by the name of Stella Anguiano. She's our master distiller in Mexico. How many women in Mexico you think have risen to the level of master distiller, which is an acclaim that you get with only great proficiency and accomplishments? She's been making tequila in Mexico for 30 years. In all of Mexico, there's hundreds of distilleries. I think 2 are women, led by women. So when we started talking with her about making this brand for us, it just occurred to me. I said, and I was so in awe of this woman in a very somewhat, chauvinistic country at times. We all have, I guess most countries have gone through that. She has broken through the glass ceiling, and she has risen to the top of her profession, an incredibly accomplished distiller. I said, why don't we start targeting more women to invite them into the tequila space? I know I'm looking around the room, and I think I'm a lot older than most of you in the room, but I remember, and maybe some of you do too, that tequila was always kind of the frat boy kind of brand and category, and they did shots, and we all have a bad drinking experience that we remember from tequila. Well, it's changed dramatically, thankfully. There's a lot more elegance to the category now. More and more women are coming in and feeling a little more comfortable in the space, and tequila has a lot of attributes that appeal to women, I think, more than men, perhaps. It's one of the lowest caloric spirits. It's made from a plant. Several diets will say it's okay to drink tequila, but don't drink other things because, coming from a plant. I know the keto diet, endorses tequila. Supposedly, it's one of the few spirit brands or categories that won't give you a headache, it's not a sedative, et cetera, et cetera. So I think because there's more cocktail drinking now, less shot drinking, if you know what I mean, I think more and more women are comfortable in the space. And the number one cocktail in America today is what? Any idea? The number one cocktail in America. You go survey every bar in America. What's the number one cocktail people serve? There you go, margaritas. Whether it's a Mexican restaurant or an Italian restaurant, the margarita is the number one cocktail. So there's a lot of women drinking that, as well as men, but more and more women are drinking tequila in restaurants, and not in terms of shots or not in terms of getting drunk. They enjoy the elegance and the taste profile now, and it's very mixable spirit, lower calories perhaps, so more and more women are drinking. But the woman on the right, do you recognize her, anyone? The name is right there, but, so that's Rita Ora. She is an acclaimed international British pop star, singer, songwriter, actor. Show of hands, how many people have heard of Rita Ora? Okay, that's a pretty good amount. I didn't know her when I first met her. I was introduced to her, and she drinks tequila and very accomplished in her field. Young woman, 31 years old, just had her birthday was in November, 31. And I said, look, we're a small company. I'm going to be marketing this product towards women. Are you interested in working with us? I said, you could partner with our master distiller, also a woman, different cultural backgrounds, obviously. Rita's from Britain, from England, Stella from Mexico. Rita doesn't speak a word of Spanish. Stella doesn't speak a word of English. It's true. But we've got them together, and they've collaborated on helping bring this brand to market. And Rita's social media following, which is in the 20, 30 million range, we thought she could really amplify the noise level. Well, noise, I say that not in a negative way, meaning amplify the brand story and noise and to her followers and elsewhere. What a great way to bring this brand to the female audience. So we did this just 3 years ago, and it's available in probably about 45 states, and it's one of the fastest growing tequila brands in a lot of export markets. Tequila is primarily a North American phenomenon, but it's growing around the world. This is one of the best selling tequila brands in Australia right now, for that matter. I think I have a short video on how Stella and Rita have worked together to bring women into the space. Let's see if we can bring this up. Again, tequila that embodies the power of the female spirit. This TV spot I'm going to show you appeared on Lifetime channel here in the United States and several TV networks beyond that.
Ingenuity, patience, passion, marks of a woman's spirit. Prospero Tequila, where complexity meets clarity and art meets craft. Where standing up for other women meets sitting at a table full of men. Prospero Tequila, made by hand, made by heart. That's a woman's spirit, and Prospero Tequila was made with it.
So again, be distinctive if you want to break through the clutter. I don't know any other brands of tequila, or even for that matter, too many other categories of spirits that are targeting women as overtly as we are. We're not suggesting it's not for men, but we want to invite more women into the space, and we think this brand is the brand to do it with Rita and Stella's help. Fourth way of cutting through the clutter, make a better product. I know it sounds simple, but it's so difficult and expensive to really do it the right way. It's time consuming. You know, we could produce our Clyde Mays brand, for instance, in the middle of that picture. We could bottle it, we could distill it, we could ask Jason to make our whiskey, and 6 months later we could put it in a bottle and start marketing it. But why wouldn't we do that? 6-month-old whiskey, and Jason will tell you as a distiller, is not going to taste very good. It's not going to be that robust in flavor. It won't have a long finish. Why? It's not aged enough. You need time to sit in a barrel and extract the tannins from the wood and just mature over time. So, but that's what you do if you want to cut corners. And believe me, there's a lot of whiskeys out on the market that are young, too young for consumption, in my opinion. They'll be out there for 6 months to 2 years just because demand is so high right now. People want to jump on the bandwagon. They don't want to miss the opportunity, strike while they aren't as hot. If I age my whiskey, I'm tying up cash, and I got to go out right now while the consumers are interested. But we take a different approach. We want to put out the best quality product we can, so our whiskey is aged 5 years before it touches a consumer palate. And we think makes a much better tasting product. Now, is that expensive? We started laying down whiskey when we bought the trademark for Clyde, and it is. You got to buy the whiskey, you got to make it 5 years ago, and then hold on to it, and you don't realize a nickel of profit until you start commercializing, until you start selling it, and that's a long wait for a lot of startups. But we had our desire was to make the best possible product for that price point, and we've done that. We've gotten numerous accolades on our Irish whiskey. That's a 92 rating from what's called the Ultimate Spirits Challenge. They're an industry review organization. Our tequila, we got 97 points from Wine Enthusiast magazine. It was the top 100 spirit in 2019. So we're making great products, and we're not charging exorbitant. They're all premium priced, ultra premium priced, but there's a good price-value relationship, we believe, with our products. Just show you, I'm sorry, lastly, the last way to be distinctive and break through the clutter and compete with these multinationals is you have to execute flawlessly on everything you do. And that involves social media, promotions, marketing. You've got to be very strategic, but also tactical. We did some things that weren't very expensive. We did them in regional markets like we're the official whiskey of Talladega in Alabama. That's a big venue where they do NASCAR races twice a year, 2 weekends a year in April and October, nationally televised. We get a lot of play from that. We're the lead on the sports report every night on the CBS channel down south. We're a quick 20-second blurb about a product. Let's see if I can bring some of this up.
The speed, the crashes, and the chase of the checkered. Watch Fast Times at Dega this Saturday at 6:30, only on CBS 42.
Clyde Mays Whiskey, the preferred spirit of Talladega Super Speedway.
So just little tactical things like this to get the brand recognized.
Show your spirit, crafted by Clyde Mays, the official state spirit of Alabama.
That is true, by the way. We are the official state spirit. There's not another state in the country that has an official whiskey or spirit brand. And we lobbied the state, this is another thing we did, because Clyde May, while a moonshiner and a convicted felon, all true, was also a war hero. He served his country heroically, and we wanted him to be recognized for that. And the state legislature signed a proclamation naming Clyde Mays Whiskey as the official state spirit. The governor wouldn't sign it. This was back in 2004, right before we bought the trademark. And they wouldn't sign it because they didn't want to honor a convicted felon. But we didn't need the governor. They didn't need the governor's vote at the time. The state legislature the Senate and the House of Alabama could vote it in, and they did to honor the man. So executing flawlessly also involves a good amount of social media with the right people, with the right message. We're building a distillery in Troy, Alabama. And we had a groundbreaking in January, and look who we got to come, Governor Kay Ivey. She's the governor of the state of Alabama. And then she went on to talk about it in her social media. I'm glad to have taken part in today's groundbreaking ceremony for Clyde Mays, new whiskey distillery in Troy. Project includes rack houses, bottling, tasting center for tourists. I appreciate the company's almost $14 million investment and commitment to rural Alabama. She's from rural Alabama. So this distillery project really resonated with her. But when the governor of a state gets behind your brand, that's like gold. That's pretty good social media news. We also use, as I said, Rita's social media feed because she's got a lot of followers, and we work with mixologists. And I think we did something around International Women's Month, which was just last month. Let's see if this pops up. Rita says a quick blurb here.
Hi everyone, in honor of Women's History Month and International Women's Day, Prospero will be celebrating our female mixologists from the UK and the US. They will each make individual cocktails using our expressions and discussing which women have inspired them the most. I can't wait to check this out, and thank you to our master distiller Stella and all the women inspiring us all.
So I'm sorry about the audio there, but she talks about honoring Stella and other mixologists, female mixologists, by the way, for International Women's Day. This one might be a little bit more clearer. Let me hear.
Hi everyone, I just want to wish everybody a happy Cinco de Mayo this year and raise a glass to our master distiller Stella and the whole Prospero team and every single mixologist that I was honored to work with this year. Swipe up for all the recipes. Cheers.
So why I point this out is because social media can level the playing field for small brands and big brands. Because if you find an influencer, in this case we're using Rita Ora's influence, that has a huge following, well, I'm behaving like Diageo now. And that is incredibly, in this day and age of low ad budgets, but high social media audiences, that's the way to do it. So I would urge you to develop a strong social media platform, no matter what you do. Lastly, as part of this execute flawless strategy, find the right partners. So we talked about our partnership with Talladega. We're also advertising on the Golf Channel with our Clyde Mace brand because, why? Because golfers love whiskey. So the demographic is aligned perfectly. We just signed a 3-year deal with the New York Islanders for Clyde Mace. We're the official whiskey of the New York Islanders. They're a national hockey team out of New York. And those kind of things help amplify, again, what I refer to as your noise level, and help you break through the clutter. And more, a lot of PR. If you're going to execute flawlessly, PR has to be a good part of your marketing toolbox because it's not as expensive as pure advertising, and you get a lot of miles out of it. We had Rita on the Drew Barrymore TV show talking about her relationship with Prospero Tequila and inviting women into tequila space. That got a lot of good reviews. She's appeared on several covers, Food and Beverage magazine, et cetera. Lastly, innovate. So, if you want to keep your brand interesting, give the consumers and the trade something fresh and new about your products every 6 months. And that's how you can keep attracting new consumers into your franchise. We line extended upwards to very higher age, 8 years old, 12-year-old whiskeys, 6 years old, higher quality products, more expensive. So in summary, the 5 ways to compete with the giants: play to your strengths, write a better brand story, be distinctive, make a better product, and execute flawlessly. And I am 1 minute ahead of schedule. Thank you. Yeah. Any questions while we have 1 minute to go? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. It was great. It was well organized. I think, too, a lot of those pieces all play in together. And so something that you were really successful with particularly was finding the right brand ambassadors and most likely bringing them in at the right time to really allow for the launch. And so for us as smaller companies, how do you recommend going about getting those brand ambassadors? When is the right time? Kind of how does all of that play together?
Yeah, that's a great question. What you're really asking about is the timing of things. Now, the distilled spirits category, I was mentioning this adjacent to the break, the distilled spirits category is fairly robust. It's been growing, for many, many years. I started this business a long time ago, and I remember the 80s were a tough time. Consumption was way down, rise of drunk driving problems, raising of drinking ages, raising federal excise tax. There's a lot of reasons why people shied away from spirits. But since the late 90s until the present day, there has been a consistent growth projection for distilled spirits. So while the category is healthy, there were 3 categories in particular that I was looking at that were growing exponentially: American whiskey, tequila, and Irish whiskey. So the timing for us seemed perfect to pursue those particular categories. So you have to understand your industry. You have to do a lot of good research, understand where the growth opportunities are, and go after those. I believe in swimming with the current. I don't want to fight the current. So you also heard probably the expression, a rising tide floats a lot of ships. We felt that if we could come out with a tequila while tequila was going like that, we would be better off, we have a better chance of breaking through the clutter. So we just looked at the trends and decided when the right time to jump in was, and it was over the last 5-6 years, based on the trends in these particular categories. Now we're looking at a lot of other categories that aren't as robust. In the distilled spirits business, rum, for instance, is a flat to stagnant to even declining category. There's some growth in the very ultra premium segment, but the majority of the brands, the popular price rums, Bacardi, Captain Morgan, are all declining. So I'm not going to jump into the rum space right now. It takes too much effort and even additional money to break through when you're in a declining trend space. So look at your industry closely, do the research, look at the categories, grab the opportunities that you see for growth, and jump in while the iron is hot. Any other questions? Again, my opinion, but I think it's worked for us. It was.
I've got hundreds of questions. We'll talk later, I'm sure. But for this group, how did you decide on some of the packaging? How was that? I mean, because that's something that could answer for a lot of people. Is how did you come up with your own packaging? I know how I did mine, but I'm just curious how you ended up with yours.
I think you have to look at again what's going on with your competitors and see what are they not doing. And one of the things we noticed was that every competitor in the whiskey space seemed to have the similar bottle. There's what we call stock bottles, and then there's bespoke bottles, where you make your own mold and your own design. And we just felt, the Clyde Mays bottle, by the way, we started out as a stock bottle because it was the quickest way to market and it was inexpensive. But we thought to really stand out, we've got to create our own packaging, our own glass. And then, you got to find good design agencies. You got to find agencies that think the way you do and are creative. And you tell them, you give them a very tight creative brief. You say, I want to be in this space at this price point, and I want to have a look and feel that's going to measure up to the price point. I mean, if you're selling a $50 bottle of tequila like we are, you can't have a package that looks like it's a $19.99 bottle. You've got to be consistent with that. And you've got to find agencies. I've always felt I've had the vision of what I want the products to look and feel like, but I'm not the artist. I can't draw the picture. So I find good agencies that work with me, that are good artists. And I say, here's my story. By the way, I want to target Prospero, I want to target women. I said, maybe we should put some sort of more feminine approach on the package. Not to be patronizing. I just wanted to alert women that we're here. So we put a lady on a horse. I don't know if you noticed that. Because this particular distillery also has stables and they raise horses. So we thought that was a bit of a unique twist. On the Clyde Mays, I said, he's a real guy. I want consumers to know the real story. Let's get his picture and put it on the label. And that's what we did. It's sort of it's in a shadow effect. But the man's picture is on that label. So we wanted to tell consumers this is a real story. This isn't a fabricated story. Everything we say about him on the label is true. So it's just in your approach to packaging, you have to take a different approach. It's a bit of a paradigm shift for people who are more focused on the production side. I know, Jason, you're in distilling, so you're probably more focused on the production side. But if you want to attract consumers, you got to do the whole thing. You got to make a great product. You got to make it look beautiful and compelling, where the value of that product matches up to the look and feel. So, I've been, not accused, but I've been maybe accused of obsessing too much on packaging, but the proof's in the pudding, it's working for us. And people talk about our packaging. They remember our brands by our packaging. So if you're going to go beyond Oregon with your product line, I would highly suggest that you think about, how do I make it look better, more premium? You got a great story. You got a sustainable distillery. That's a great story. You can there's a lot of real estate on the bottle. You can tell that story from, soil to finished product. Oregon is a great craft whiskey market, craft spirits market. I think you would be, you've got the making of a great brand story, and you can make a really cool package that resonates and exemplifies or stands for everything that you said in your presentation today. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.